fourth graders. We are here, me and Scamp, for our last 2 chapters of Wildfire. And I know it's not the greatest quality, but you don't need to see my face. You just need to hear me read these last 2 chapters of Wildfire. And Scamp has joined me ever so kindly to be my reading partner today. So, are you ready, sir? Hey. All right, let's do this. We are on chapter 40. Called Ride of the Falconies, and they just found the satellite tower that was Fat Freddy. So let's see what happens. Okay, here we go. The man who stumbles out of the cinder block building is a lot older than I expected from the sound of his voice. He's got a short white beard and a long white ponytail that goes almost to his waist. The ponytail reminds me of Willie Nelson, but Fat Freddy has a pot belly that spoils the resemblance. Wheezing from the smoke, he barely makes his way across the unpaved parking lot. "Oh, my lord," he exclaims, his red-rimmed eyes taking us in. "You sent me 2 angels in a Jeep." "Is there a road?" "Access road hasn't been paved in years." "Hop in, show us the way." I have to shout because the roar of the approaching fire has gotten so loud. It's not a normal sound. More like the trees are screaming. Must be my imagination, because trees don't scream, do they? Freddy scrambles into the back. We tear around the building, and sure enough, there's an old pothole-riddled road just wide enough for the Jeep. My heart soars. We've got a chance. From the back seat, Freddy leans forward, pitching his radio voice to be heard above the roar of the approaching fire. "Thanks for the ride, kids. Figured I was a fried chicken for sure." "Everybody hang on," I yell. I'll be going as fast as I can, and the road looks bad." We're just starting down the bumpy access road when the fire sweeps up over the hillside, igniting the meadow and underbrush and the stand of scrawny pines all at once. More an explosion than a fire, like the world was doused in gasoline and God was holding the match. But the only thing in my head is trying to stay alive. Too late to get ahead of the fire, so we have no choice but to find a way through it. The access road is steep, but the potholes are deeper. Steer hard, yanking the wheel to avoid breaking an axle. All around us, trees ignite from the top down, jumping from crown to crown, as if the wildfire has been lifted into the air, into the treetops. A wave of scalding heat makes it hard to breathe. "Give me your undershirt," Delphi shouts at Freddy. "Quick!" I can't see what she's doing, but a moment later, she ties a water-soaked rag over my mouth, then does the same for herself and Freddy. We probably look like scruffy bandits, but it really helps. Breathing through a damp cloth is the best we can do under the circumstances. Maybe you think it's brave what we did, but courage had nothing to do with it. We were terrified and we kept going because we had no choice. Down that winding access road, avoiding potholes, keeping as close to the middle as possible because fire is racing down both sides, exploding from tree after tree. I may have been screaming, not that anyone noticed or cared, screaming as much in anger as of fear, because I couldn't help thinking about what happened to my dad when the Hummer hit his truck in Afghanistan, how the gasoline tanker he was driving rolled off the shoulder of the road, turning the rig upside down, how he was trapped in the cab as the gas poured out and then exploded. Then they say he was probably unconscious when it happened, but nobody knows for sure. Mom didn't want me to hear the details or read the report from his company, but I had to know. I had to because my imagination made it even worse in the report, which concluded he perished in less than 30 seconds. 30 seconds can be an eternity if you're inside a fire. Believe me, I know. That's probably how long it takes to get all the way down the access road, which is only a few hundred yards. It finally levels out at the intersection with the paved road. I scream, "Which way?" And Freddy points to the left. We barrel down the middle of the road, a real road, not a trail, hitting 50 miles an hour on the speedometer. Pedal all the way to the floor with me hunched over the wheel, urging it to go even faster. That old machine purring like it's young and brand new. Maybe it thinks we're on a battlefield in Korea. But wait, machines can't think, can they? This one can, in my imagination, because it was like the Jeep took over. I was holding the wheel, but the Jeep was steering because I was so distracted by the exploding trees that I couldn't think straight. I could hear Delphi and Freddy chanting, "Go, go, go," but it was like something in a dream. Like they were part of a soundtrack my dad used to play, a thrilling passage that for years I thought was called Flight of the Falconies. I used to imagine flocks of falcons diving into battle, claws outstretched, but it was never falcons at all. It was something from old Norse folk tales called Valkyries. Female angels of death who ride into the battlefield deciding who will live and who will die and who will go to heaven. I wasn't ready for heaven, none of us were. We wanted to live, and it was the Jeep that helped us, never hesitating as that 70-year-old engine hit RPMs that under normal circumstances would have made it seize up. That day, it ran cool and smooth and somehow kept accelerating. Okay, that was me standing on the pedal as we headed downhill, and we flew down that road, something beautiful, catching up with the flames and passing them, blowing through clouds of hot black smoke and emerging unscathed. Well, not quite. Burning cinders lit my hair on fire again, and Delphi jumped to put out the flames with her bare hands, shouting that we were going to make it. Just keep going. You're doing great, you crazy little brother. Go, go, go. And I'm driving through the pain and the fear and coming out the other side. Even now, I have no idea if it was me or the Jeep that found our escape route. All I remember is that the road ended and the fire was catching up, surrounding us. We came off the paved road at 60 miles an hour, practically airborne, and then we were bouncing over a hard, grassy surface. I remember a couple of cottages flashing by and knew we were close to a lake, but I couldn't see it through the seething clouds of black, hot smoke. If we'd stopped on the shore, we'd all have been toast, like all those cottages and cabins. But we didn't. The Jeep never slowed down, and when the wind blew the smoke away, just for a second, there it was, right in front of us. A long dock, heading straight into that beautiful lake. A long dock that was as good as a road, wide enough for the Jeep, and we tore down that dock at full speed, racing like no tomorrow as the fire swept around the lake, turning everything to flame, incinerating an entire evacuated village. Maybe you heard how they flew off the dock and out into the lake and landed on the one and only spot where we had a chance to survive. Shallow enough so we couldn't drown, and situated in exactly the right place. The Loon Lake Miracle Spot, they called it. The one place in the entire lake where the air was far enough from the fire so it was possible to breathe without searing our lungs. The water was only about 3 feet deep, but that was just enough to protect us and to keep us cool as the rest of the world went up in flames. 2 kids and an old man, sitting in a sunk Jeep with the water up to our armpits, laughing our heads off, glad to be alive. How cool is that? Chapter 41. This is the end, my friends. Delphi told me later that I was yelling, "Nobody dies, nobody dies," all the way down the mountain. Honestly, I don't remember that part. All I remember is the tops of the trees exploding like artillery shells and the flash of super hot air that wanted to melt us, and Freddie clinging to the Jeep like his life depended on it, which of course it did. They say at the core of the crown fire that the temperature can exceed 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. One breath of air that hot and you're dead. Later I learned that the Great North Woods Fire was the largest ever in the history of the state, and that at times it spread almost as fast as the dry windstorms that pushed it. All we knew that day was that the fire kept chasing us, and no matter how fast we raced to get away, it was faster catching up. They tried to make it out like I was a hero. Ha! Some hero! I was scared the whole time, from the very first day. There were lots of real heroes in the Great North Woods Fire. The long-haul trucker who drove his rig through 10 miles of blazing highway to rescue his wife and children. That team of volunteer firefighters from Belfast who died trying to evacuate those people who had taken refuge in the church cellar. Dozens of real heroes, hundreds probably, and most of their stories were never heard. Personally, if a thing can be a hero, that old Jeep deserves a medal. By the way, the grandson of the man who owned the Jeep towed it out of the lake and had it completely rebuilt and presented to his grandfather, Captain Aldrich Brown, U.S. Army, retired, on his 90th birthday. I know because I was invited to the birthday party. The old man looked so much like the young man in the photograph it was eerie. I guess running a locking operation for 40 years keeps you in shape because his old uniform still fit. The coolest thing was that after Captain Brown climbed into the Jeep to try it out, he saluted me. And then he handed me the ownership papers. That's right, the Jeep is in our garage, on our dust sheet, waiting for me to turn 16. As for Delphi, we talk all the time, and we see each other whenever. Yesterday she told me she was in love with some guy she met online. In the grocery store. Haha, is how she put it. However it happened, good for her. We were both relieved to hear that the dirt bikers survived and were arrested for arson. Charles and James Biney, who destroyed dozens of homes and helped the wildfire spread, and whose hatred of outsiders landed them in jail. Good riddance, I say. Oh, yeah, you're probably wondering what happened with my mom. That's a really long story, but the short version is at the height of the fire, she promised herself that if I survived, she'd complete rehab, which she did. She's back home now, managed to keep her job at the physical therapy clinic too, and has really thrown herself into it, helping other people. Says it takes her mind off feeling sorry for herself, and that's a good thing. When she's not working or looking after me, she's out in the garden, weeding like crazy and bringing it back to life. Today, a rose bush she thought was dead started to bloom. It's been a long time since I've seen her so happy. The truth is, she's still pretty shaky about what happened next. I keep telling her, Mom, nobody knows what happens next until it happens. All we can do is take it one day at a time. That's the end. This is just the afterword. I'll try to read it for tomorrow. There's a story they survived and they rescued Fat Freddy, and the Jeep is okay, and Delphi and him are friends, and what a happy story. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.